and it is my great pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, Bob Morris. Bob and I worked, before I became a professor, I was at Ogilvy, which is an advertising agency, for those of you that don't know. And Bob was the Chief Strategy Officer at Ogilvy. So he's been for digital at Ogilvy, sorry. And Bob is such an interesting guy. So I'm proud to call him my friend, as well as he's like one of the most wicked smart guys I've ever known. Just a joy to talk to. So I'm thrilled that he's here today to talk to us. No?
Now I'm scared.
Bob has grown up with the digital and social world. So he has been in agencies that were just getting into digital at its infancy, and he has been with it all the way through. He's been on leadership teams for great digital agencies like IQ Interactive. With Ogilvy, he was able to really be at the forefront of them reorganizing as digital at Ogilvy. And then he went and kind of left the agency world and a little bit and started his own. So he's in a different space now, but he's using all kinds of technology, all the information that he has, all the digital and social kind of information to work with Fortune 100 companies, is what I would say, but Fortune 100 or 500 companies. And what they do is they go in on a general consulting basis. So anybody here ever heard of McKinsey? Kind of consulting? You know, they go in and help redesign corporations, right? They try to help them go to market in a more effective way. Well, Bob's company, and he's the co-founder and he's the CEO of that company, actually does the same kind of thing. So they compete against the McKinsey, but they work with CEOs across the country to be able to redesign or optimize the design in their go-to-market approach while integrating technology, whether it's social or digital, to be able to make them more effective in the marketplace. So is that a fair?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Description. Right, I got it.
You got it.
So without further ado, Bob's going to take us through monetizing social media and some of his thoughts.
How are you? Excited for this big presentation? How many of you are in school versus run a business? Let's go with school. How many run a business? All right. Some of you may have heard me speak already. So I'm going to go through some of the same things. But we'll get to do Q&A this time. So hopefully this will all work. Let's see if I break anything here. So adding to the background just a tiny bit, I've been doing digital for 20 years. So I'm old, really old. Been doing 20 years, and in that time, there's been a tremendous amount of change that's taken place. Social didn't really exist, if you will, back in the 90s, didn't really exist up through the early 2000s, not in the context of how we think about it today. The picture, can you guys see this? It's kind of dark. Could we dim maybe? There we go. The picture of the individual that is up in the corner who's staring at a screen is actually the person who is supposed to be speaking. That's kind of funny. For me, that's really funny. Dirk is actually one of my partners, Dirk Shaw, and Dirk was actually at Team Detroit. Team Detroit is a 1,200-person marketing agency, if you will, that's been built within the walls of Ford from WPP, which is a holding company. Dirk ran all of Ford's social marketing, Lincoln, all the divisions globally. So he was going to be speaking, but as I've mentioned in some prior sessions, he is working on developing a product actually for us right now for General Electric. And it's a social platform, social product that's going to be coming to market. And so he's a bit swamped. So I got the privilege of coming over from Atlanta. Trade has offices in Chicago, offices in Atlanta, is about to open an office in Boulder, and has personnel also in New York. So it's a little bit of a backgrounder. If you guys are familiar with different agencies, how many of you are familiar with like the agency space? A little. Ever heard of Critical Mass or Razorfish or Blast Radius, any of those companies? So I was a chief strategy officer for all three of those companies at one point in time or another. So it's a bit of a transient space. Typically we build things, we build organizations, and then we decide after 3 or 4 years that, you know what, I really don't want to manage what I just built. So I get the opportunity to be able to move on. So we decided to build a company. And I am here to talk to you about the art and science of monetizing in social media. You'll notice that they're in quotes, right? And there's a reason why they're in quotes, because it really is an art. I would tell you that it is more art than it is science today, although that's changing over time. So here we go. So I said this in the last conversation, and I will say it again. So we're all on the same page. I want to start with like a benchmark of what social media is. Everybody feel pretty comfortable about what social media is? For the most part, I'm trying to keep this at like a mid-level presentation, like basic to mid-level, and then we can ask complex questions if we would like. Okay? All right. So Wikipedia, the end-all, be-all of user-generated content, and I put insert sarcasm, because as I understand it, you guys aren't supposed to be using Wikipedia, and I think it is a lousy resource because it gets all sorts of user-generated information that's incorrect. Defines social media as media for social interaction using highly accessible and scalable communication techniques. You can read this. That's how it defines it. So let's continue. Social media, broadly defined, consists of any online platform or channel for user-generated content. You can see things like WordPress, SharePoint, Lithium, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can see a whole bunch of different types of technologies that are considered to be social platforms. And then there's the eConsultancy Twitter poll, which I love because it limits you to 149 characters, and this is people coming in and saying things. So they said social media is like going to a large party. Put on your best outfit, try to be entertaining, and don't put your own foot in your mouth. Some folks have heard me say this already, so I apologize for being repetitive. We have a fun engagement that we have just been handed, which is, are you guys familiar with OTT? The term OTT. Anybody familiar with it? Hands up. A couple people. Over the top. Okay, so over the top is basically creating your own distribution for content. So not going through something like NBC to produce content or push content, right? It's creating your own mechanism. So we have the lovely privilege of being assigned to create an OTT network, which is really a platform for pushing content and creating social interaction for Paula Deen. So when I go to don't put own foot in mouth, I'll just leave it there. I won't go any further. A place to hang out and communicate with your own network of contacts, friends, and peers about stuff that interests you. Social media is a facilitation and practice of engagement. You can see this again and read through it. So, what once was the first moment of truth. Okay? So in advertising and marketing, how many of you are I guess you're in integrated communications, integrated marketing? Okay, for the most part. Okay, so anybody know what the first moment of truth is in marketing? It's silent. No, I need feedback. First moment of truth.
Are you talking about like before like the Google moment of truth? So it'd be like you see a commercial or an advertisement and
Exactly.
you go, okay.
Exactly. So when you as an agency produce content on behalf of a client and push it into the market and I consume that content, that has traditionally been called the first moment of truth, right? It's my first interaction with a brand. Well, the reality is that social media has created what is called the zero moment of truth. And Google is the one who's actually coined this. If you go to thinkwithgoogle.com and take a look at all the content that they have a tremendous amount of content, great videos, a lot of other pieces of content around how they look at the zero moment of truth. But the reality is that for brands any longer, the fact of the matter is that the first interaction that you'll have with most of them is going to be the zero moment of truth, meaning somebody shared something somewhere, right? So I'd ask a general question to everybody, which is, are you going to branded websites to look up brand content, or do you typically find now that it's like, oh, somebody posted something on Twitter, you click through, or you saw a link somewhere in some social context? Which direction is it? I'm looking for anyone to respond. The latter? Yeah. So zero moment of truth is basically the idea that we don't control as brands any longer the conversation, right? That there's a step before all of our money, the advertising, the marketing, all the things that we're doing, there's a step before that that's now really uncontrolled. Okay? So this is actually the head of global consumer engagement for PepsiCo. Right? You as a brand have to be completely confident about your position because you'll get criticism. You'll have a negative reaction. If you didn't get a negative reaction, that means you're standing neutral and you have no point of view. Who wants to participate in that? Right? The reality is that if you're going to participate in social media, you have to plan for those events that are going to come up, which are going to be negative in some context, right? And you have to have a plan and a process in place to be able to address those. This is a little bit of information from American Express. It's kind of interesting because it talks about the fact that they use social effectively for customer service and as a barometer. So it says here, they tell significantly more people about their service experiences, and they say they would spend 21% more with companies who deliver great service compared to 13% on average. Brands that use their data intelligently will be the long-term winners of customer trust. Right? I worked on a project a number of years ago for UPS. And as an example, they had only a handful of people that handled social media. And this goes back, I guess, about 4 years ago or so. And in that process, people started to realize that if their package didn't get tracked, that what they could do is they could go on Twitter. And they could say, my package isn't here, right? The problem was that we only had a handful of people who could respond, and we're talking about Christmas time, and we're talking about thousands and thousands of requests that start to come through. So they've now built an entire ecosystem around the ability to be able to support Twitter and support package tracking. The irony of it is they hadn't planned very well initially, and so all the way up to one individual below the CEO of the company had to come in the day before Christmas and had to come in on Christmas Day, the executives of UPS, and they were the ones who were actually pounding away responses and actually having to look up packages, right? So it can get out of control in a hurry if you're not managing it and planning for it. So let's talk about the S word. So I said this earlier, so I apologize again, I'm repetitive. Am I allowed to say steroids on a college campus? I don't know, I felt kind of weird. So let's talk about the S word, so your brand on steroids. So the question is, so I'm going to break this into two conversations. I'm going to break it into individuals and your social ecosystem and businesses. So as individuals, you have a responsibility for building out a social ecosystem that is well-constructed, valuable, right? And as Rob King said earlier today, keeps you out of trouble, right? So I am one of those people who will attest to the fact that when we recruit, we look at your backgrounds. We actually have HR screen your backgrounds. We have HR take your name, put it in, and screen to find out your Instagram, to find out anything that we can possibly find out about you. So when 5 o'clock rolls around and you love martinis, or whatever it is that you love, the reality is that we're going to see that information. And if I'm a company, as an example, that we typically work till 6, 7, 8, we have long days, right? Our clients are very demanding. And I see that you like to leave every day and have a great time around 5, that probably isn't a very good alignment, right? So from a social perspective, just know that everything that you guys are putting out there actually has a bit of a long tail. And if you're not aware, Twitter is now going to be going back and creating a timeline sequence. So what you tweet is going to be available in the future to be looked up. So we used to love Twitter because stuff just came and went. Now it's going to be like Facebook, right? So that's going to be an issue for people in the future. So I put this up here in the initial rationale for putting this big picture here was to say, are you this in social, or are you this? Right? It's a good question. So let's talk about your brand. So do you have a Facebook page? So and let's go again. Let's follow the path of individuals and businesses. Do you have a Facebook page? Okay. By the way, are you trending down in your usage of Facebook and up in your usage of things like Twitter, Instagram?
Yes.
Yeah. Really significant?
Yes.
Yeah. What's driving that? Why?
Your phone. It's easier to load the Twitter and Instagram than Facebook on your phone. We're on our phones more like a desktop.
So is that just a usability issue, right? Because Facebook has their app for a phone.
But it's like slower than the other two.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it might be that Facebook has been out for a while, and so the craze kind of died down. Now all of a sudden, all these new apps like Instagram, I know, is flourishing right now. Vine and stuff, everything like that is a lot bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're coming out with more things. It's newer, and I think that's what's attracting more users. But in the next year or so, maybe Instagram will die down, something else will come up, and then it'll just be a whole new cycle.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Parents are using Facebook.
Good point.
That's
I love it. Now wait, the initial response is, as parents use it, yeah, I don't want to be on it. Oh no, it's not cool anymore, right? Yeah.
They want to do those pictures.
People can share a lot more content on Facebook, which is a negative for me because people go on and on and on, whereas Twitter or Instagram, you could just see what someone's doing, see what somebody's saying very quickly, and then move on to the next thing. Instead of, like, my Facebook is now full of, like, moms that stay home all day and just talk about, oh, I changed my child's diaper, and they talk about it for like 20 sentences. So I prefer to just quickly scroll through something than see a paragraph.
Got it.
Yeah, kind of what she said, like Twitter and Instagram, they kind of cater to our short attention span a lot better than Facebook, and just the general environment of Facebook has really changed in even the past 5 years, and so
Right.
that like everyone's original motive to use Facebook, you don't really have that there anymore.
Right. Did you have
One thing that we work for a television station in Tupelo at WTVA, and personally I like Twitter and Instagram, but for your audience, you know it's best, and for us it's Facebook, because we do cater to an older demographic, an older audience. So for us, Facebook works better. Personal, Twitter and Instagram. You have to know who you're catering to.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I have to agree. I work for an online newspaper, howdytellyu.com, and we have found that, I mean, Twitter's been a great tool, and it's changed our audience a little bit, but most of our traffic still comes from Facebook. I think because Facebook is more visual, and we are able to get great photographs and put them up. The problem with Instagram we found is that you can't direct link back to the website, so it doesn't really increase traffic that much.
Right,
But,
right.
From a personal standpoint, yes, I'm on Instagram more than any of the others, but for work, Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
To kind of bounce off what Lauren Ann was saying, at WTVA, Facebook is our #2 referral to our website that generates over 1 million hits per month.
Interesting.
Now, it's second to none. The first place that people go into that website is actually typing in the URL. So
Right.
Facebook is huge for us.
Right, right. Interesting. So, oh yeah, please.
I just have to add on too that grandparents are on. So what our research had said is that it was kind of less cool when parents got on, but when your grandparent got on, that's when everyone under the age of like, I think it's like 28 or 30 just said, I'm out.
Well, I'm going to leave if you're going to keep bad-mouthing old people.
So what you're really saying is that you guys discriminate against age. Is that what I'm hearing? Like at the end of the day, because I'm not cool anymore because I'm in my 40s, and so I see how this works, right?
I would say it would be age. I would say age, as well as you were saying earlier, kind of the way the content's presented. You know, with Twitter and Instagram being much more short form, much more I can see what I want to see and move on, and Facebook being more of something that's going to hold your attention span a lot longer, and young people don't have as long of an attention span.
Right.
So they lose interest in it.
I will say that before we started using Twitter for every article that we post, our top audience was the 55 and older crowd. You know, the referrals are all coming from Facebook, and they are the older crowd. Now that we post everything we do to Twitter, that top audience has shifted to the 25 to 34-year-old crowd.
Interesting. So the question that I would ask, and I'm deviating through my presentation, the question I would ask is, if your parents started moving over to Instagram and to Twitter, do you move?
Yes.
Wow, that was quick.
She like a single photo on Instagram, and I was gonna block her from it.
It's over.
It's over. So you really do want separate channels, essentially,
Well,
from...
the idea of Facebook originally, you had to have a college email.
Right.
Totally out the door now, so you have to move on to the next one. What's the next thing that's relevant to my age group? It doesn't
Where
matter the
can you
age group,
safely
relevant.
post your Saturday night picture?
Right. Yeah.
I think it's also a point of like which age gap you're looking at.
I mean, I've like blocked my parents on Facebook because they'll go and just post on my wall and just like everything. Whereas like my mom's like, oh, my mom's on Facebook and I don't care, and just because she's an older generation gap. And I think as the years keep going, parents and kids, I mean, they don't like grow apart, but.
No, you're saying we're not cool. I see how this works.
No.
So I'm going to leave the university after having been here and be like, yeah, they all told me I wasn't cool. That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Well, my mom tried to create a fake Instagram profile and then continued to try to follow me. So I was like, no, that's not.
I love it. I love it. So yeah. So let me ask another question related to that, just for 1 second. So if out of curiosity, if then we're saying that from a social perspective, platforms are relevant until the audience gets usurped. Okay, is that a fair kind of, okay. So what happens then when your parents now have an iPhone? Is an iPhone not cool anymore when your parents start having them? It's still cool. Okay, so it's still relevant. It's technology platform hardware is a different conversation than content.
Exactly. I encourage, like, my parents, I was like, y'all need to step up, get an iPhone, get a Mac, like, y'all need to get up to date. But whenever it comes to social media, definitely it's like, okay, you can slow down on that.
Right. You're like, Dad, put the flip phone back in your pocket, because that's kind of not cool, right? Right.
I think it's also like, I don't know about everyone, but I know I use my iPhone for different things than my parents, whereas my parents are more like news and like work-related things on their phones and don't know how to do half the stuff that I do on my iPhone. And
Right.
Mom's always asking me, oh, how do you do this? And I'm just like, you don't need to know that.
Right, right. So that's interesting. So the next question would be, do you guys all have Twitter accounts, right?
Yeah.
How often do you guys tweet?
I'm very few. I'm not a huge tweeter, I guess you can say. I've actually grown to use more of like LinkedIn. Like, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to see, okay, I want to make some moves to try and put myself out there because, the job industry is kind of tough. So I think it's more like a maturity issue, especially with Facebook. And I remember when my parents got on Facebook, I was like, oh, I don't want them to see what I'm doing. But now, I don't care.
Right.
I'm very open with my parents. They see, my posts, whatnot. They check in with me. I'm very cool with them. But now it's just, like the other person said, the atmosphere of Facebook has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of advertisement on Facebook now. So, a lot of, post this to my wall, or try this. A lot of companies use it, and it's effective.
Right.
But as you grow older, you just move on and use certain different things that you need.
And also a lot of games, too. I noticed, like, games on Facebook. I think that's another reason why it's kind of getting away from its purpose, I feel like.
Right, right. Yep. Yeah.
Well, I know for me, like, Twitter, I have created mine to be, I mostly only look at sports on Twitter. So I have all of, like, the different teams that I want to follow and people. So if I can't watch the Ole Miss baseball game, I can go through Twitter and see what's going on. But
Right.
Facebook is very difficult to clean out. Like, I want to delete half the people on my Facebook, and it is so hard. They don't have a way where you can just do,
Right.
like, delete all these people. But on Twitter, if I see somebody who posts something that annoys me or I think is overly inappropriate or something, click on them, unfollow, they're gone forever, and I never have to see it again.
Right.
But my Facebook, I never want to go on it because I don't even know half the people on there anymore that I went to high school with or whatever.
Right.
But I can't get rid of them easily, so I'm not going to waste my time.
Right. How often do you guys tweet? Like, what's a day look like? One?
Maybe.
Once? Okay.
I would say like I would tweet 3 times, but I might like retweet more things like from other people. Like,
So-
I could
so-
retweet more than I actually create.
So what's the frequency of retweeting versus tweeting? How often do you retweet? Is it more?
Yeah, depends on the day.
Depends on the day. Okay.
I'm a big sports guy, so if there's a lot of sports events going on,
Okay.
and I'm going crazy.
Okay.
There's not so much.
Real quick, for business owners, how often are you tweeting? I'm looking in the back. Do you tweet?
We have an account, we just set it up, we're launching tomorrow, so we've got all the accounts, we've got things set up, we're not active yet.
Okay. So who's the target demographic for you guys if you're tweeting?
Well, we sell custom insoles for runners, for golfers, for diabetics.
Okay.
So we're not really sure. We're figuring out how to use the blog, how to get links to us, how to get involved with forums, and
Right.
do. We know it's all out there, but what we really need is a plan.
Right. Right. Well, that's fantastic. Very cool. Welcome to the Twitterverse. Yay. Anybody else over here? No? Okay. So the next one is, how many of you have an Instagram account? Okay, is it not cool? I'm going to ask another question. Is it not cool when your 11-year-old brother or sister has an Instagram account? Does it lose its coolness? As I hear a grump. That's pretty funny. It's like, oh, great. Is it not cool, or is it still cool?
I will say this, my fiance has a 9-year-old and she has an Instagram account, and it is an uphill battle to get her to stop duck facing on Instagram. her dad hates it, but
I love
there's just
it.
nothing we can do about it.
I
But
love
if that's
it.
the worst thing she's doing on social media, then I'll take it.
I understand. Other comments back here?
Just kind of upsetting because I feel like when I was that age, I was not on my iPhone. I mean, iPhones didn't exist, obviously, but it's upsetting to see like that younger generation literally taking over social media and posting pictures that make them look older than I do. So I don't know.
Right,
I don't like
right.
that.
It's, yeah, please.
I don't have a younger brother or sister, but I'm from Oxford and I've got tons of friends who have kids and they're range from whatever range. What's more devastating about seeing these kids on Instagram is not their, duck faces, which are silly and fun, we all make fun of them or whatever, but it's when, like Murphy Holloway's posting White Girl Wednesday or, Marshall Henderson's having some controversial, cocaine battle or whatever the heck he's doing. And these kids are following them and they're like, first like,
Yeah.
you're 9 years old.
Sorry.
You don't even know about White Girl Wednesday, Just being honest.
That did get recorded, right? I just want to double check it. Because that's pretty funny. Yeah.
I may be, at this point may be kind of unique, but I think that it's also kind of almost a pride issue. I feel like our generation, I'm an undergrad, and I just feel like the generation I grew up in was always told, oh, you're the first, to really grasp technology. And, we've kind of grown up with it, but then you have this younger generation that's even more adept at it, and it's even more naturally pumped into their lives that it's almost like, hey, no, we're the ones that know that. So when you see them so advanced, like using iPads at like 2 years old, like I have a nephew that just knows how to swipe an iPad and open it up, and it's almost like we're giving that kind of title of technology guru away, and it's only going to get worse. Or not worse,
Right.
but it's only going to get more like that each generation.
Right,
It's kind of
right.
scary.
I totally agree with the pride issue. I would have never put it that way, but I think it's totally true. I mean, I get frustrated seeing middle school kids with phones. I'm like, really? Okay, I don't think you have a need for that, but sure, if that's what your parents want to give you, that's cool. But also with iPads, I was babysitting and the mom was like, oh yeah, my 2-year-old has his own iPad. And I was like, I'm 20 and I don't even have an iPad. What's the need for this? But
Right.
I definitely agree that it's a pride issue that, it sounds kind of bad saying it, but just they're kind of not one-upping us, but just being how we were, except at a younger age. It's just weird to see.
Mhm.
Not used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does not have an iPhone. She wanted one for Christmas to duck face on, but she does not have an iPhone, so we bought her a bike. And she uses her mom's phone. She doesn't know to log into her Instagram account because we agree that it's too young. I
Right.
didn't get a cell phone until I needed one to tell my parents to come pick me up from somewhere, before I could drive, and that seemed like a good time to get one, but no, she doesn't. She's
Right.
9. She's not going anywhere alone.
Right. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so Pinterest, anybody? What's so cool about Pinterest?
I don't know. My girlfriend spends all day like 20 pictures of cats. I mean, what are you doing? I don't know.
That's awesome. Curious, yeah.
I like the DIY projects because they're really geared towards a college budget. So it's nice to create something that looks really cool for $2.
Right, right. That's awesome. Anybody else?
I think
Yeah, please.
I think it's good for curating things, so you can kind of archive thoughts or archive information.
Right.
It's basically like what I used to do, tearing something out of a magazine, but now I have it in one place where I can carry it with me.
Right.
Hoarding.
Online hoarding. I like that. That's very interesting. Yeah.
I think not out of all social media, but out of the I don't want to say useless, but basically the social media that doesn't necessarily need to exist. I think Pinterest is kind of the most useful just because of the wide range of stuff. Yeah, there's random stuff on there. People post pictures of hot guys and just okay, cool. But then as far as the recipes and the DIY projects and just all the informative stuff that you can find on there, I think it's really useful to be able to have that all in one network and just be able to access it all.
How many of you look at Etsy? Wow, that was quick. Look at that. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Very interesting. Did you have feedback as well?
I was just going to say, Pinterest is so so can be so viral for blogs. I mean,
Absolutely.
I've seen crazy stats and stuff go through Pinterest. If you find one thing that people like, it just can blow.
Yeah, and Etsy's the same way. Etsy's got a very, very viral component to it. It's very interesting. How many of you have ever heard of Glassdoor? Okay, a few of you. Who has not heard of Glassdoor? Hands up. All right, so when you're looking for a job, okay, when you're looking for your first career position, before you make a decision on companies that you would like to apply to, go to Glassdoor. Okay? Glassdoor is the place for employees of companies who are current employees and past employees to register. They have to put in things like their salary band and all those types of things, but it's where they can comment on a company. So you get a very, very good feel for what people are saying about a company. In many instances, you can tell that someone had an issue with their manager or their boss, whatever the scenario may be. But a lot of people give very, very good feedback on like the culture of a company, the expectations of a company. You'll hear things like if you're young, they make you be on the road all the time, right? They kill you, they don't pay you well, all these kind of things. Not kill you literally, but it's one of those things where it's good and bad. You're going to get all that kind of insight, so it's worth using. Also, how about LinkedIn? Who else using LinkedIn? That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. And then, do you guys have blogs? How many of you blog? How frequently?
2 or 3 times a week.
2 or 3 times a week. Over here?
Not nearly as much as I should. Probably once a month at this point.
Okay. For business owners?
Yes, we have set up WordPress, and we really we plan on doing it daily.
Okay. And what about for the media outlets? How about you guys?
We do not do a company station-wide blogging, but we encourage our local talent to do so. Our weather and sports people have very awesome blogs that they're pretty much daily updating.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Okay. So, if you thought about it in the context of the spectrum, right, where are you from a social media perspective? No presence, we're dabbling, making progress, it's integrated, or we're social. I'm assuming that almost everybody here that isn't running a business would turn around and say, we're social. Relatively fair? Who falls into the category of making progress or I'm dabbling? Anybody? How about it's integrated into the things that I do, but I wouldn't call myself social? Anybody not social? One in the back. Anybody else? It's interesting because from one perspective you look at this and you go, your whole generation has effectively grown up in the context of social, right? I used a quote, I think I used it yesterday, Chris, when I said there's a thing called SODA, the Society of Digital Agencies. It's very exclusive, it's very difficult to get into. And SODA, they get about 2,000 requests per year to get a membership. And they let in about 2, 3, some years maybe 4 companies get in. That's it, right? And the chairman of SODA currently in 2000, it would have been 2007, in a meeting said, social is nothing more than a fad. I love using that quote because at the end of the day, it was very interesting because in the early stages, especially for people who were older, when it started to happen, everybody kind of looked at it and said, what is this? Like, why? Like, what's the momentum? But if you really think about it, the internet was originally created to be a communication medium. It was actually hijacked by businesses. It was never intended to be what it actually has become, to be candid. It wasn't. And I can say that because I was around when Tim Berners-Lee turned on the internet. So I'm an old guy, right? But it was never intended for that purpose. When brands jumped in and started doing things on it and people weren't really using it, it was because it required coding. It required things that wasn't easy, right? Now it's very easy. Now you're able to use all these applications. So I'm going to talk a little bit from a business perspective. I'm going to talk about what does it take to run a social media platform for a company. Number 1, it takes community management. Number 2, reputation management. Everybody in here know what reputation management is, right? PR, crisis management, right? It takes someone who understands measurement and who can really look at things from an analytical perspective and understand how are we trending, what's happening, what am I seeding, is it working, is it not working, why is this happening versus that. And then customer care, it's a huge customer care opportunity for companies. I don't have to sit on the Comcast line for 45 minutes listening to horrible music, right, and ads. I can just go straight to customer care and I can basically say, hey, I've got a problem. Hello, tap, 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 is the mic on? Can you help me, right? And then you have legal and compliance and marketing. Legal and compliance is there specifically because their job is to keep you from getting into trouble. So if somebody says your product sucks, right, and posts that, and somebody decides to tweet back and says, no, you suck, you got a real problem as a brand, right? Surprisingly, that has happened a lot, right? A lot. Because people are people, and we get irritated, and people who are managing these things don't have governance necessarily, and then they make mistakes. I've got one later that I will show you that's pretty interesting. Over here, just to teach a little lesson, on the paid side of the business, when you're spending money, you have paid search, you have display media, and you have sponsored content. Make sense to everybody? Pretty straightforward. Up above the line is social media, word of mouth, organic search, and earned media. We separate word of mouth from social media. Word of mouth is basically you and I talking about things and passing it along. Social media can be me as a company just broadcasting out a message on a social channel. Make sense? Pretty straightforward. So these are the roles. So if anybody wants to get into social media and a job, a career in social media, you can look at what these roles are and essentially what the skill sets are that are required, right? For measurement, KPIs. Do you know what KPIs are?
Key performance indicators.
Key performance indicators. So they're benchmarks. They're things that we established that we're basically running against. Benchmarking, reporting, analysis, and recommendations. Anybody in here like a geek when it comes to data? Love data? I've got one in the back. Anybody else? No? Okay. How about anybody aspire to be a customer care rep? That's pretty funny. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Sorry. How about reputation management, public relations? Folks want to get into that? Okay. Huge part of it. When Chris and I were at Ogilvy, Ogilvy was the PR firm responsible for British Petroleum, for a company with the B and the P that accidentally spilled something, a lot of something, right? And I used the story, and I mentioned it I think yesterday, I used the story of CNN was live with a feed, and they were talking, if you guys have seen that, they were talking and they were explaining something that was happening, and they were wrong in what they were explaining. And the Ogilvy team, which was actually based in Houston at the command center, actually started tweeting them live. And they stopped the broadcast in the middle and said, holy cow, BP is actually communicating with us live right now. And they were literally tweeting back and saying, no, 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 you're wrong what you're saying. That is not this, that is not this, this is what's going on, this is the piece, right? But you can only imagine the amount of work and effort that had to go in from a PR perspective to try to clean up on the reputation management side. Incredible amount of work, right? And then you've got community managers over here. These are people who monitor content and sentiment. They respond to issues and questions, but they're also responsible for essentially defining what the community is supposed to be, right? The worst thing you can do is set up a social community, a social platform, and not know what you ever want it to be, right? A lot of companies put stuff out there. They create content. They throw things out there. But they don't have a roadmap for where they want to go. Make sense? Yep. Okay. So, social media landscape. Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, LinkedIn. So first of all, here's the deal. You got to know your audience. So you have to figure out where you want to be. As a business and even as an individual, do I want to be on Instagram? Do I want to be Google+? Do I want to be on Twitter? Why? Why am I there? Right? Somebody said something earlier which I thought was interesting, which is the Facebook comment about how many people you have that you can't get rid of now. It's like, how do I just get rid of you people? I don't want to see diaper changing, right? This is just wrong, right? The reality is you have to make a decision on what's relevant to you, right? And you can see these are huge platforms, but here's the deal. Know your audience, engage your advocates and your detractors. So if you're a company, one of the things that you've got to do is be very proactive in going out and saying, hey, if somebody's bad-mouthing my brand, I need to make sure that I have a plan for how we're going to communicate with them and how can I turn them into an advocate for the brand versus a detractor, right? And then this idea of don't ever lead, but seed. So as a brand, our responsibility is essentially to put things out there to get the conversation going. But it's not to be leading the conversation, right? If you're on Twitter or you're on Facebook and you've liked a brand, like how many of you have liked a brand? Okay. How many of you unliked a brand? How many of you liked and unliked the brand pretty quickly? Right? Yeah, and here's why, right? Because they use it kind of like broadcast TV, right? Let me just keep shoving stuff at you, and it's like, oh, look, they're sending people to a conference. Oh, look, they want to sell me Diet Coke. That's nice, right? It's like, no, I don't want to have that kind of relationship. The other piece here is, what were you thinking? So stay out of their way. The idea that, it's like, look, just let these things take place, but do it in a construct that has a framework so you know that it's moving in a certain direction, right? Because you don't want to just leave it be out there and be its own thing, because that can be its own problem in and of itself. And the last thing is reward loyalty. I said this earlier today. We have a client right now that has 45,000 fans who have aggregated on their own around a brand. They went out and they hired an advertising agency then to grab control of that site experience because it had happened organically. And the first thing that happened was it went from being this really natural conversation to people just sharing stuff about the sport and about the products to all of a sudden it became, hey, I'm here, I'm the brand, right? And the problem is now you watch the numbers and it was just growing. All these people just coming together on their own. And all of a sudden it's like, blunk, right? Now it's, let me head down this way. Right? So one of the challenges for brands also is figuring out what am I supposed to be communicating. But again, the idea of rewarding loyalty is extremely important. So when you guys are online and you're doing things social, do you actually get rewarded for anything you do? Does any brand like reward you in any way?
Yes.
Which ones?
Birchbox.
Very cool.
Whenever I go and write a review about a product they sent me, I get 10 loyalty points, and that adds up to like a free $100 gift to buy stuff.
Same for Stitch Fix.
Which one?
Stitch Fix.
Very cool. Any other ones? How much time do you spend interacting with brands from a social perspective? Not much? No? Is there a reason why? No? Just because it's a brand? Do I want a relationship with my brand?
Well, I follow them more for the news that they put out as opposed to, I guess, what they can do for me, unless they're winning free tickets or something.
Free stuff.
Free stuff, right. Free stuff, guess what? Exactly.
I just want to know who's injured, who's playing, who won, who lost.
Got it. Okay, so this is interesting. So watch. When you go from here, which is the stuff that you guys are pretty familiar with, how many of you guys mess with Google? Google+. Do you guys do Google Hangouts? Gmail? Yeah. So I go from here to here. This is pretty much the latest version. Well, not the latest, actually. I guess this is the 2012 Buddy Media one. But this was the landscape at the end of 2012. These are all the companies that are out there with social platforms. You guys probably didn't even realize that there was this kind of social ecosystem sitting out there. There's a ton of companies. Social intelligence, social scoring. By the way, do you guys use Clout? Anybody use Clout? Hands up. Okay. Who's got the highest Clout score? Who's got a 50?
It's for the company.
And how big? How high is it?
I think it's 51.
51? Anybody in the 50s?
I think I had 54.
54? What's Clout? Okay, so here's the thing. So Clout is basically a tool that measures your influence. It's your clout, right? It's your social clout. And if you stop tweeting and you stop posting stuff to Instagram, you find that you rapidly go from a 53, which I had like 2 weeks ago, to I dropped to like a 46, like a rock, right? And I'm like, oh no, I got to get back on, right? So it's a way of measuring your social influence, right? It's a pretty cool tool. There's a couple tools like it. Peer Index is another one that's similar to it as well. But the reason I put this slide up here is to say, look, this is a complex space. It really is a complex space, because if you only think about it in the context of Google and Instagram and Facebook, as you guys get out into the business world, you're going to find that you're going to need to know a set of these tools. I'm going to guarantee that if you're in the marketing space, you are going to need to know a bunch of these tools. So, a couple quick notes. Q4 13 snippets. We use something called Global Web Index. I mentioned it in another meeting earlier. I can't remember whether it's $89 a month or if it's $89 for the year. I seem to think it's $89 for the year for the subscription. But it gives you all sorts of access to really interesting data. There's 350,000 people in the study, and it's a linear study. So it's looking at things over time and looking at the same people and asking the same questions and seeing what's changing in terms of their response. So something like Facebook, you would see somebody who was 18 2 years ago in the study who would have said, I love Facebook. And now they're saying, oh my God, my parents are on Facebook, right? So you see the trends and you see how it works. But in this case, you know, the items here are who asked a friend about a product that they were interested in. 12.28% of people in Q4 actually asked a friend about a product that they were interested in. Bought a product or service, 21.02% of people on Facebook bought a product through Facebook as a result of being promoted in some way through Facebook. Shared a photo from a company or a brand, 14.71%, and then followed a group or liked a page created by a brand, 22.9%, or 39.57 million Americans. A lot of people, right? But it's interesting, it's got a skew. More women than men follow brands, at least in Q4. Kind of interesting, right? So here's why you're here. How to monetize social media, okay? So this is a little blurry slide. So there's basically 4 quadrants. We measure brand awareness and reputation via your share of voice, okay? So if you're a brand, it's all about how big is my echo, right? And we're measuring that across a number of factors, positive, negative, neutral. So we're doing sentiment analysis, trying to really understand where is the conversation going? Is it going well for me, or is it headed downhill? Then we have sales effectiveness, which is these basic metrics and advanced metrics. The basic metrics are, you know, are more people buying things because, right? Because I'm doing blank in social media, or are they not? On the advanced metrics, we start looking at the effectiveness, right? Like, how effective am I being at driving sales? And we've got specific measures underneath that. And then we look at lead generation effectiveness as well. And then this whole idea of marketing effectiveness via reach, growth, and engagement. That's how we measure, right? So let's start with digital monetization. So bottom line is this. When we look at monetization, if I build a website, I can do all sorts of stuff. I can do search engine optimization. I can do targeting, behavioral retargeting. How many of you guys own cars? Does anybody not own a car? Wow, times are changing. Okay, so you own cars. Do you pay for your insurance? Do you buy your insurance? Okay. Have you ever gone looking for insurance online and then found that everywhere you went online, the stupid insurance company was following you because all the ads became Progressive or Allstate? Ever had that happen? Right? It's called behavioral retargeting. I know exactly what you did, and now I'm going to track you, right? And I'm going to spend a lot of money to keep tracking you, right? Up to the point where I've determined that you are no longer viable, right? In the auto insurance category, we know that it's 48 hours from the time that you actually start looking to the time that you typically will actually bind a policy, right? That's just statistically, we know that. So there's all sorts of things that I can quantify up here, but now let's talk about social monetization. So how many of you guys were aware that a hashtag is the equivalence of search? Okay? It's cool that you guys know that. Most business people don't realize that. Most business people today don't understand that hashtags are basically just a way of being able to search and categorize things, and you can control that as a brand. You can also control it as an individual. How many of you have your own hashtag? Just a few? Why do you have, now you would have it for business, right?
I've got a ton of hashtags.
You've got a ton, okay. So for you as an individual, why do you have a hashtag?
Mine's for business as well.
For business, okay? And is it the business or is it you?
It's, well, Insight Park is the university's research park, so there's like a hashtag, like UM Research Park, that sometimes different things are on campus will use.
Okay. So anybody else as an individual have a hashtag? You've got one. Now why do you have one?
We adopted 2 kids, and it's like all the pictures of our kids so our family and friends can see them.
Very cool. And you?
I mean, I have one as a news personality, so I'm at that one kind of in between.
Yeah.
But I have one just so I can, you know, try to encourage others to use that hashtag so I can see what they're wanting from me, what they want, how to interact with them.
And is that your primary mechanism of kind of interacting is through your hashtag?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Back here?
Yeah.
Why do you have one?
I have a hashtag called Cooking with Victoria, and I
I love it. Other people? Yeah.
Yeah, I just recently got married, and my husband and I moved from Seattle to here, so we have like Pointer Adventure, so it's all the things that we've kind of, like the road trip we went on and
Very
things
cool.
that we've done here, because most of our family and friends is across the country. So
That's awesome.
Storytelling.
Storytelling. Yep.
Mine started mostly as a joke. I have a strange way of going about doing certain things, and so whenever if I decide to do about it, I'll usually put the hashtag in there, just so that they know where it's coming from.
Very cool. Now, I will mention one thing, which is kind of funny. I'll just throw it out there. Totally off subject. I wasn't even going to think about this, but there is a Twitter account called Fake Bob Morris. It's pretty funny. It's not. It's stuff that's business related, but it's always done in a pretty funny context. And it actually got created because I didn't have enough time to be tweeting, and I made a comment one day in a meeting, and I said, you realize that almost every executive that is online that is tweeting is not tweeting. It's someone tweeting for them. They don't have time, right? It's like, my goodness, you know, you look at it and you go, Bill Gates, 42 times you tweeted today? Really? No, it's not you, right? So I was making fun of all these fake ones, and the next thing you know is my guys at work created Fake Bob Morris. So if you want to follow it, you can. It's a blue shirt folded up. They were making fun of the fact that I love blue shirts, and so it's just, that's its photo. So, so here, yes, hashtags. So if you want to monetize, you can monetize through hashtags. The thing is, you can actually transact. You can do commerce through hashtags, right? Most people don't understand that or realize that, but the fact of the matter is, it's a totally ownable component of social media, okay? Then I say here, no, you don't want to monetize through Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. The reason for monetizing through that and not monetizing through that is most people don't go to Facebook as an example and be like, I want to buy a refrigerator, right? How many of you have bought something through Facebook? Chris? Anybody else? Okay, very few people, right? So if you're spending a ton of money as a brand going, I'm trying to push commerce through here, you can see what the results are. They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. Now, it doesn't mean that brands shouldn't be there. It just means that they shouldn't try to build out an e-commerce platform and try to transact with you, because you're probably not going to transact with them, right? So I like this stat. According to Forrester, 40% of adults don't want to interact with brands on social networks, and 48% of adults who friended a business on Facebook did so solely for the discounts, offers, or retail incentives. How often do you guys actually do something like that, like friend something because it's like, you get 10 bucks off? A lot? And then how fast after they give you the 10 bucks off did you say, I don't want to ever talk to you again? Pretty quick, right? So if you're in the marketing and advertising business, I will tell you that we call that addiction. It's addiction. It is total addiction from a brand perspective, because they look at it and they go, look, we got 86,000 people who are now following us. And then you don't run a promotion for 2.5 weeks, and it's like, look, I have 8 people following me, right? It's a really bad use of money. So, social monetization, again, yes, social sign-in. How many of you guys actually use things like up here, your LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and just do your auto connect to like a website if it asks you to register?
Yeah.
Anybody got big concerns with that? Whoa, I got a hand in the back, got a hand here. Why do you have concerns?
I just feel like they're gonna like post stuff on my behalf without, like, I don't like when someone posts like, I just like an achievement for something. It's like, this person just did this, and it gets out to Twitter or Facebook.
Candy Crush, yay!
Yeah,
You're like,
avoid that
seriously,
at all
people?
costs. So I'm pretty skeptical about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like it, by the way, just a side note, I always think it's really funny when, like, you know, like at lunch or whatever it is, I might go online, or I have a bunch of my systems are all tied together, so I get my Facebook feed will populate against my screen, and it'll pop up stuff. And it's like in the middle of the day, I'm like, that guy, he's like the senior vice president at like GE. It's like, he just got a Candy Crush like score, like unbelievable. I'm like, did you realize that you're like publishing to the world the fact that you're not working? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. So this is a way here, this is really smart. Social sign-in is really, really smart. And the reason why it's really smart, okay, is because if I went to a website, okay, and it said, before I can show you anything on my website, I need you to give me your name, first name, last name, your address, your children's names, your wife, right? I want all this information about you. You'd be like, there is no way in a very warm place that I am going to give you that, right? The reality, though, is when you do that and you click that, you just did that. And I know everything. By the way, I don't just know forward what you're doing. I know the entire trail and the history that gets pulled forward from LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever that may be. I can pull that forward. Right? It's profile management. But the cool thing if you were a brand for that is that the next time you come to the website, I can say, somebody give me your name. Brittany. Hi, Brittany. How are you? It's Saturday. Right? We have a special. And I can customize that right at the home page when you come in. Right? And if I know other things about you from that history, from that login, I can make the promotion specific to you. I can do a whole lot of stuff for you, right? I can also pre-populate any of the forms that you may have, right? So it makes it easy for you to be able to go through and buy something versus having to go through and fill in all your information. Okay, yes, like, pin, or share content. We want to monetize doing that, right? These are great things. Pinning, sharing content, all those kind of things. I can monetize against that all day long as a brand. Every time that you pin something, it's like, woohoo, I'm a brand, yay, I'm happy. Right? Because there's ways for me to monetize against that. Then you've got this, yes, customer communities. How many of you have ever bought something like, have you ever bought anything from Samsung? Anybody here have a Samsung phone? Okay, a couple people. Okay, have you ever had to go to the customer support site? No? Okay, that site is actually managed along with a ton of other sites by platforms like Lithium and Jive. They're community platforms, they're social. Their intent is actually to reduce the cost of customer care by actually getting you to answer the question that somebody else asked about the product. And they've been remarkably successful doing that. I use an example of a customer who has a guy who has responded over the last 3 years or so to 92,000 questions. So first of all, get a life. Sorry, right? But he's responded to 92,000 questions, right? He has 5 stars next to his name, right? He's such an advocate for the product that he just constantly, he just loves living out there and being the guy who's answering the questions. And it's like, well, that just reduced all the cost of my customer care. Yay, thank you, right? And what did they do for him? They actually send him their products early, and they actually even fly him out and have him participate because he loves to blog. Right? So it's like, oh, he got it 6 months early. He got to see the product. And now he's got a huge following, right? Which is great. You can do that and drive cost out. So yes, right? Then this idea of personal event triggers, like these sharing thresholds, right? So what we look for is the idea that what you want to be able to do is create, I want to create a trigger that will get you to actually do something, right? And there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. You can do it in bad ways and good ways. The bad ways would be, of course, let me give you an addiction and let me give you $22 off those UGG boots. And guess what? You're going to take the bait, right? At the same time you take the bait, what just happened to me as a company is when those 45,000 people just decided to come and become friends of mine, and those 45,000 people decided they also now want to transact through my website, I'm paying a cost associated with that because my traffic volumes are spiking. I have service issues that I have to manage. So you have to really think about that. Yes, on ratings and reviews, again, same thing. We love ratings and reviews. Thumbs up, thumbs down, very cool. Just know that when you're doing a lot of thumbs up, thumbs down stuff and it's tracking you, know that that is trackable. So if you get really upset with a brand and you let the brand know what's on your mind, and I look you up, there is a chance that I could find how much you were unhappy with those UGG boots when they showed up, because they weren't really Uggs, right? Be careful. Just a general commentary. No on combining self-promotion in the wrong context. So this one I used earlier when we were talking. You guys may remember this one. Millions are in uproar in hashtag Cairo. You guys know this one? Rumor is they heard our new spring collection is now available online. Who was this? Kenneth Cole, when you had the riots in Cairo and people dying. Crisis management. Hey, PR firm, help me. I really just screwed up, right? We have the same thing here. This is Kmart. It's blurry. It says, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of this terrible tragedy. Okay? This is Kmart. This is Newtown. Okay? And at the back end of it, they hashtagged and said, I can't read it now, but it's something about toys. Find toys. Finding toys. Hashtag. The other two are praying for Newtown and something else about Newtown, right? And then somebody was stupid enough to stick in finding toys. What were you thinking? Like, seriously, who was the person who would have actually thought that that was an intelligent decision, right? So at the end of the day, you have to be very, very careful about how you manage the channel. So getting started, where to focus. So if you were a business, you want to define the org model that supports social media. Okay, and it should be integrated. It should not be a social media team that lives in building A, and marketing lives in building B, and product development lives in building C. Develop business objectives. What do you want to do with the channel? Do you want 25,000 followers? Do you want 5? Do you want really high quality followers, or do you just want to aggregate anybody and everybody? How many of you guys have more than 1,000 followers on Twitter? Anybody? Why do you have 1,000 followers?
Because in my previous life, I was an interesting tweeter.
You were an interesting tweeter.
Yeah, previous. That page is about to be deleted. I was an interesting person.
Is that page being deleted because you're looking for a job? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. All right, we get to the meat of the issue, right? Okay, so define key performance indicators. You have to know exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve, right? If you don't set benchmarks, then you have no idea, right? And by the way, you guys set benchmarks for everything. You guys set a benchmark for your GPA, right? Want to hit a score? Keep your scholarship, whatever that may be, right? Create baselines. Baselines would be things like share of voice, traffic referrals, sentiment, conversion, and then develop the actual plans, right? So you've gone up here and built a model, you got business objectives, but you then have to develop a real plan that you can run to. I said this yesterday in a meeting. When you guys leave college, it is extremely, extremely important that you know how to make things like project plans, right? You have to. Everything in life is a project plan. When we run companies, is it on time, on budget, on quality, on strategy? That's how we run companies, right? So if you come out of school and you're creative and you did great and you got wonderful grades and you sit down for the first time and I say to you, okay, I need you to break down a plan for me on how we're going to get this done and we need to have it done by the 15th, and you look at me with like glass eyes and you're like, I have no idea how to put together a plan, right? That's a problem. Right? So we talk about tools that you guys need to actually have experience with. Microsoft Project. Anybody here ever work with it? No one. Okay. Over here. Microsoft Project is a tool that is a tool.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. Microsoft Project is a tool that you would want to get to know, right? And then test, measure, and refine. I threw some tools up here from a licensing perspective. Radian 6. These are different tools that basically you can license as a company to essentially track your social media. And then there's some free ones. So if you had a big social presence as an individual, you could track yourself also using those tools. And Clout, by the way, is an individual tool as well as a company tool. All right, last little thing, the UGG of social media. I love this guy up here. Who needs customers when you have friends, fans, and followers? Yeah. And I like that. Welcome to our brand, last updated months ago. And then let's use branded hashtags, right? Who was it that did the funny SNL skit? Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, I mean, there's just some great things about hashtags. You can just completely butcher the use of hashtags. So please don't use like 18 hashtags in like a 149 character sentence. So that's it. Comments, questions, thoughts, insights. Ask me anything. You have 2 minutes.
I have a question.
Yes.
We work in our company is a B2B technology company. So we definitely have a few objectives that we've set forth, which is mainly awareness. That's more on our client side, and the other thing is to be more thought leaders. We provide a lot of content. We have a lot of data for the media within our industry. And I know you mentioned having a roadmap. So that's one thing that I think that we're kind of still blurry about. We produce a lot of content, a lot of things are going out, but we don't really know what it is that we want to get back from that is in terms of lead generation and those types of things, because our actual client base is not our user base. And so, the decision makers are not the users, and we kind of struggle in that area with who it is that we need to be talking to.
Right.
What are your suggestions in that? On that playing field, on the B2B tech playing field.
I mean, typically on the B2B playing field, we go Salesforce.com.
Well, we have Salesforce.
Right. Now, did you integrate Salesforce.com with your website?
We've not.
Okay, so you can tag almost every event within your website and determine the customer profile based on what you just did on the website. And then you can actually trigger an event within Salesforce.com to actually have that message, as an example, a sales rep to say, this is somebody that needs to be contacted in the next 8 hours, somebody within 24, 48, you can prioritize that. It's all step-based. And so,
I think right now we're using Leadlander.
okay,
So
yeah,
that's what
I would switch to use Salesforce and integrate Salesforce through the platform. Yeah, and it works really, really well. You just have to have a definitive, again, plan for what steps mean what, because you don't want to have people who are like on a plane worrying about responding to a guy who made an inquiry that is so far out there, not connected, and he's missed the boat in terms of spending that time. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
So it's just my personal opinion. The main reason I feel like the Twitter and Instagram is replacing the Facebook is that the vehicle will get access to these social media from the laptop or the PC to the mobile facilities. We can't slap down like in such a small screen to read an endless story. So nowadays we want to build up like a long content in business. Should we like break it into fragments or pieces? Is this a tendency?
It is, and we refer to something as responsive design. Have you guys heard that term? So responsive design is basically, and by the way, if you go to the Boston Globe website, it's a great example of responsive design. Take the corner of your browser and start to slide it over. The further over you move it, you'll see that it moves from a website to a tablet to your iPhone. It's very cool to watch it just reconstruct itself all the way over as you move it. Because what it's doing is measuring the amount of pixels that you have available, right? So it keeps changing it. So it's not just about redesigning an interface. It's about deciding that you want to give only 20% of that story. So you want to recut that story in a way that actually allows it to work on a device where you know people are reading it very quickly versus with something that's long format. I don't know if you guys saw it today or not. I'm noticing everybody has laptops and I don't really see tablets. Is there a reason there's not tablets, typically? Is that because Microsoft Suite isn't on the tablets? Is that a reason why? Right. I don't know if you saw it today or not. Microsoft made an announcement today that you will now have access to all of their products on the iPad. So that came out today. And that may change the way that you guys behave. But the devices are very different, right? The form factor is very different, and the amount of screen size that you have is very different. So yes, you need to be adjusting content based upon the platform that you have.
So last question, I think. Did you have one? Or are you just stretching? Sorry.
You're stretching, and you're like, oh no, don't ask me. Anybody else? Is this helpful? Does this give some context? It's hard because it's, I can get really technical if you want me to get really technical and then make you guys all go, God, what is this guy talking about? Yes?
Sure, about the common part, because I found that nowadays we usually just read the title or the brief introduction of the content and sooner go straight to the content part. And it's really funny because we want to find the opinion of the people like us or the people we want to be, and a lot of fun when they're debating with each other. So can we find any opportunity or just seize the opportunity of this part, to use the common part to doing our business?
Help me understand the question. I'm sorry.
Just because, maybe we can our advertisement in the common part, but maybe in a different way. But
okay.
I think it's an opportunity to to see. So, is there any way, in your mind or in your opinion, is there any way to better way to do this?
When you think about, so from a content perspective, right? Let me ask you a quick question. Did any of you guys see comment?
Comment part.
Not common.
Yeah, like your idea when you read a Twitter or something.
Comments.
Comments.
Okay. So your question about comments is?
We just go straight to the comments part and just read the title of the news or the brief introduction of the news. Got it.
Okay. Yeah, well, for anybody who's trying to do long format, it's a real problem. I would tell you that most people don't read long format anymore, right? When was the last time that you read something that if it had 5 blocks underneath it and it was arrows and you needed to keep paginating through, how many of you read all the way through? Very few of you, right? The reality is that we're literally living in 149 characters, right? That's how we like to consume things today. So a lot of people, what they do is they will literally go and read the header of the article, and then they'll skip the article, and they'll literally drop down and just read the comments, right? Okay, I mean, that's a mechanism that you can use, but the problem that we have is how do we write compelling content that's interesting and engaging that will actually keep people's attention, right? That's a huge challenge for you guys in the next generation of people who are trying to create content, is how do you make it so that it's consumable, and how do you make it so it's interesting, right? Otherwise, we're going to all live in the world of 149 characters, and every one of us is going to be diagnosed with ADHD, right? Let's just be candid, because we're getting to that point where everything is just so small and compact, and that's all that I can consume. So again, thank you guys.
We can continue the conversation at FNC. For those of you who are sticking with us, we're having a little reception at 4:30. But let's give Mr. Morris a